Alois Schicklgruber, who later changed his name to Hitler, was a rigid, cold, strict disciplinarian who regularly beat young Adolf. When he was 10, Hitler decided to run away from home because of the beatings. His father caught him and gave him such a beating that he was in a coma for days, his life hanging by a thread. He was a poor student, much more interested in becoming an artist against his father's wishes. By 1905, he dropped out of school. He pursued his dream of entering the Academy of Fine Arts. But his dream was shattered when his mother, Clara, died 4 days before Christmas.
He became non-functional. He was devastated by her death.
After his mother's death, to support himself, Adolf sold his paintings on the street. It is interesting that he only painted landscapes, never people. 2 years in a row, Hitler applied and was rejected by the prestigious Academy of Fine Arts. Because he was unable to draw humans, the Academy told him that he had no aptitude for painting. He decided he was rejected because several of the admissions committee were Jewish. Vienna was his first exposure to Jews from Eastern Europe. Hitler became attracted to the rhetoric in racist, anti-Semitic newspapers and pamphlets. It was during this period that he first became intrigued with the idea of a pure German master race. Finally, in 1914, with the outbreak of World War I, Hitler enlisted in the army and found his identity in battle, carnage, and death. For the first time in his life, Hitler was happy, felt at home, that he belonged.
In his army service, Hitler was the happiest he was at any time in his life. The sanctioned killing that he was entitled to engage in as a soldier gave an outlet for the first time to the murderous rage that had grown in him from treatment by his father. That he was chosen by destiny for a magnificent role in history.
When Germany signed the armistice on November 11th in 1918, Hitler was enraged. He pledged to avenge those who betrayed the fatherland. In his view, the communists and the Jews.
After the war, Hitler became associated with the German Workers' Party, which shared his same ideals. He became known even outside the party for his passionate speeches opposing the Treaty of Versailles, Marxists, and the Jewish people. Hitler impressed his party early on, and by 1921, he became leader of the newly renamed National Socialist German Workers' Party, known more simply as the Nazi Party.
Hitler thought of the German people as children who had to be controlled by a strict father, their Führer. He believed it was his destiny to fulfill that role.
In 1932, Hitler ran for president. Despite losing to Paul von Hindenburg, he was increasingly seen as a realistic alternative in German politics. After being subject to increasing pressure, von Hindenburg named Adolf Hitler the chancellor of a coalition government on January 30th, 1933. This date is now commonly associated with the end of the Weimar Republic and the beginning of Hitler's Third Reich. Not long after Hitler's appointment, there was a mysterious fire in the building that housed Germany's parliament, the Reichstag. Hitler's government consequently signed the Reichstag Fire Decree, which suspended the basic rights of German citizens. This gave the government the legal right to imprison anyone considered a Nazi opponent. Hitler then installed the Enabling Act, which legally turned Germany into a dictatorship. Hitler subsequently made the Nazi Party the only legal party in Germany by banning opposing parties or forcing them to dissolve completely. After the death of President von Hindenburg in August of 1933, Hitler was handed the presidency by his cabinet. In less than a year, Adolf Hitler had secured supreme political power in Germany. Hitler's powerful speeches attracted attention, and he was welcomed into Germany's influential circles and viewed as a feasible solution to problems with the current government.
He immediately created a police state and used his dreaded secret police, the SS and Gestapo, to enforce it. To strengthen his grip on the Nazi Party, Hitler eliminated his political rivals and so-called enemies of the state.
Hitler and a large group of his party's paramilitary soldiers stormed into a beer hall in Munich filled with 3,000 people. Hitler claimed a national revolution had broken out and the government had been toppled. However, the night was filled with confusion, and by the next morning, Hitler and those involved with the uprising realized it was going nowhere. Hitler was soon after captured and charged with high treason. Hitler's trial and imprisonment gave the Nazis national attention. His defense speech speech was filled with nationalistic sentiments, and his popularity soared as he entered prison. By the time of his release, Hitler had written his infamous book Mein Kampf, or My Struggle. He had also changed his outlook on revolution. Hitler vowed to do everything by the book and rise to power through the Weimar Republic system rather than by violent revolution. It was in 1930 when the Nazi Party would experience a political turning point. In the span of one election, the party grew from the 9th smallest party in parliament to the 2nd largest.
Hitler also revised history, and in Hitler's case, erased part of his own past. On March 11, 1938, enthusiastic crowds greeted the Führer as he annexed Austria and made it part of the Third Reich. Once Austria belonged to Hitler, he took steps to eradicate any suspicion of his Jewish past. Hitler eradicated the Austrian village of Dollersheim and a dark secret that haunted him for years. The birth registry of Dollersheim held the birth certificate of his father, who Hitler suspected was the illegitimate son of a Jew. Hitler used the village as an artillery range. Round after round of artillery fire crashed into the village, demolishing its buildings and making the graves in the cemetery unrecognizable. By obliterating the town, Hitler erased suspicion of his own Jewish blood. Hitler believed he was surrounded by enemies trying to betray him, and that he needed to strike first.
Hitler grew up with the idea from his experience in his own family that it was probably necessary to kill if one did not want to be killed. He generalized this and divided people into predators and victims, and chose very deliberately to be a predator.
The predator's next victims would be Jews. Hitler's obsession and secret plan would be to liquidate all the Jews of Germany, Europe, and the Soviet Union